guys, welcome back to what episode are we on, guys? Is this the 7th episode? It is. Welcome to the 7th episode of a Sam Girl Retrospective. I hope you guys are enjoying the pod. We are so grateful to our returning listeners and to our new listeners. This has been such a blast for all of us to get to make this podcast. And I just wanted to check in with you guys and just kind of shout out where you guys are listening from and just basically tell you from the bottom of all our hearts, we thank you and we love you guys. So we have a lot of listeners in the US. That's where I'm stationed and two of our hosts. And then a ton of listeners in the UK, which is where our two of our other hosts are from. I see that we have listeners in Canada, Germany, Brazil, Australia, Bulgaria, Denmark, New Zealand, Romania, Spain, Poland, the Netherlands, Austria, France, Russia, and Tanzania. And I just wanted to let everybody who's listening know I see you guys. I'm so thankful for you guys. And I hope that we continue to entertain you guys. Don't forget that there is an email listed on our YouTube channel as well as on our Instagram. If you're a listener who ever wants to reach out and give us feedback, ask us questions, or just shout into the void about something about the show Supernatural or the podcast, please don't hesitate. I try to check it at least once a week, but the more interaction I get there, I'll check it more regularly. I love to get back to you guys. We got a really sweet email earlier from a listener in Germany. I just love hearing from you guys, so please don't hesitate. It's there for that reason. I would love to hear from you guys. And I'll go ahead and put it in the show notes, the email address in the show notes for this episode, just in case, since I'm mentioning it here at the top of the episode right now. Don't forget, if you guys are not subscribed yet, maybe you just catch it on the YouTube link I usually share on my Tumblr, which is sunflowerchester.tumblr.com. But if you have not yet subscribed, and you just kind of catch it on your feed, if you have a second, subscribe on YouTube, subscribe to us on Apple, Spotify, wherever you prefer to listen. We should be on most all podcast platforms at this point. And if you have a second, if you guys could upvote our YouTube videos, leave a comment, if you could rate, review, and like our podcasts on whatever other platforms you guys are on. I think Spotify just enabled comments on podcasts now, which is really weird and cool for us. So anywhere you guys want to interact with us, we're so excited and grateful to hear from you. So give us a shout out, give us a like, give us a rating. Anyways, this episode specifically, we only cover one Supernatural season 1 episode, and that is Faith, the 12th episode of season 1. And the reason for that is because we have some big feelings about the episode Faith. I have Vic on this week. She absolutely adores this episode and she has a lot of really big opinions. And so we just really gave this episode the space it needed, which ended up meaning it got its own episode. So we hope that you guys really enjoy this. And without further ado, here we go. Enjoy episode 7. I like your haircut.
Thank you very much.
It's so cute.
It's looking extra whatever today because I had my hair in like French plait last night so I could put the wig on.
Your photos were so cool. We should include them in the visuals for this episode. No, last night
shot of wig escaping my head.
Yes. Last night I was at Hamilton, and so I realized when I was looking at myself in the video that I cried part of my lashes off. So like I have like the inner lashes and the outer lashes are gone.
Oh no. I think most of my makeup's gone now. The eyeliner always hangs around. You know, like eyeliner is always difficult to get off. But when you've done like, and particularly last night, I did like all of this was eyeliner. Like it was
I don't even know. Do you have to take a scrubber like to your face? When
no,
you take
just get one of those oil-based cleansers, and then it's it mostly comes off, but yeah.
Cool.
Anyway. Exciting updates on Vic's drag life.
Hell yeah. Okay, are you ready for this one?
I am. Yeah.
So let's get into it. This one is a big one. We're doing only one episode for this episode of the pod. We're doing Faith, which is the 12th episode of season 1. And this is a big one for my crew, for our crew, me and Vic's crew. We have like big feelings about Faith.
Yeah. I think probably out of everyone, I might be the number one Faith stan, but like everyone loves it. But like I'm not going to say it's my favorite episode of Supernatural ever. Like there are ones that I love more. It's definitely my favorite season 1 episode, and it is definitely 5. Yeah, it always definitely top 5 easily.
Yeah. Top 3?
Yeah, probably. Probably. Okay. And it is definitely my favorite Brothers episode.
Oh, it's so good. Okay, let me summarize it really fast and we can just get right into it.
Yes.
So, the cold open usually is about someone else and they usually die. And we get introduced to the issues of the story, the problems of the story through the cold open. But in this one, the cold open begins in the middle of a case that they're finishing and includes the boys. So then like, oh, well, then we don't have an easy solution because usually the Winchesters are the solution, but the Winchesters are part of the cold open. So you're automatically kind of set on this like anxious, like what's going to happen? So in the cold open, Dean kills a monster, which I want to talk about that monster a little bit more when we get into it.
I was going to say, actually, the only other cold open that we've had that is kind of similar would be Skin, I guess.
Yeah.
So, and like, again, it's like, another
you're
one.
Totally right. Like, so you're like, oh no, is it going to be like that? And it is. So Dean is electrocutes the bad guy, but unfortunately he was in a puddle, so he too is electrocuted. So he ends up in the hospital. He ends up they say, oh, he's had a heart attack, he's gonna live like a month possibly. And so of course Sam's like, no, this won't do. And so he finds an option to take him to what he calls a specialist. But then he actually takes him to a faith healer and he's miraculously healed. This does not sit well with Dean because he's like, I've been a hunter long enough. I have this weird gut feeling. I feel like it's not good. So they investigate more because Sam is like, okay, let's check it out. And they realize it is actually a Reaper that is being controlled by not the pastor, but the pastor's wife. And so in the end, they're able to stop the Reaper, but only after a few more people have been killed, targeted by the pastor's wife, who is controlling the Reaper by what she believes are sinful people. And unfortunately, Dean has to stop the Reaper before he can heal someone he's become close to throughout the episode. Her name is Layla. She plays Rita on Dexter. She's also in Buffy, which I know Vic is very excited about. Yeah. And so at the end, like, they stop the Reaper. The woman is like, who's been controlling him, dies because the Reaper's like, bitch, you cannot control me, and like kills her, is like mad and kills her. And then that's the end of the episode. So that's roughly the like summary, but there's so much more that happens.
Yes.
Start us off.
There's just so many little like details in this episode, like just little things that I don't know, that just stick out to me. I would first of all just like to get my like extreme bisexual energy towards Julie Benz out of the way. Like I literally wrote down, like, usually when Dean does a cheesy come online to someone, I'd be rolling my eyes, but it's Julie Benz, so like I get it. Like, go for it.
Who can help it?
I don't know what it is. She's so gorgeous, and there's something about her voice. It's so distinctive,
so soft spoken, and that's what I've always loved about her. That's why. Okay, so I know her as Rita from Dexter. And so, like, when I saw her in Buffy, because I watched Dexter first, I couldn't understand. I was like, no way this sweet, soft-spoken woman could ever be evil. Like, she's just so kind and, like, loving.
Yeah, anyway, I love her. She's wonderful in this as well. Like, she's
exactly the perfect energy for that role, too. Yes, she has to be so accepting of her fate and not angry about it, because it's not fair what happens to her, and yet she's still she's the perfect casting choice for this.
Yes,
role, in my opinion.
absolutely. Yeah, I really agree about the cold open. It's just great. It really grabs you right away. And again, that like opening shot of
Hmm.
them opening up the hood of the Impala,
Hmm.
it's so good. Like again, just like the lighting and the atmosphere and like the angle that it's shot from, like
Hmm.
everything about it is just like it immediately grabs you. And as you said, it like immediately stands out as different because the first shot we get is of the boys and the Impala and
Yeah.
like they're going on a hunt. And that is, yeah, that's completely different to anything. Like even Skin, as I
Yeah.
said, even though that's comparable in that it involves the Winchesters, it's not like instantly bam, we're into a hunt.
Yeah.
Like that's the first time we've had that. So
And we're
really,
far enough into the series at this point that we get it. We like know what's going on.
yeah,
Like we are
exactly.
like, oh, they're opening the Impala, they're looking for weapons. We know where we're going from here. So we're like,
Hmm.
oh, okay, we're starting in the middle of the action this time. Let's go. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you wanted to talk about the demon that Dean killed.
Yeah, what in the world was it? Because I missed what he called it. He was like, he
Hmm.
called it something. And I was just like, what is that? First of all, because it was interesting. And second of all, do we ever come across that kind of
I
thing
don't
again?
think so. I was thinking about that because I was like it sounds interesting. Like
Yeah.
something that has to be killed by electrocution, and it
Hmm.
seems weird that we never, as far as I can think,
It's
never
like
picked
a
up on one again.
missed opportunity to have gone back
Yeah.
and been like, remember when you were healed by the faith healer? Like, here's another one of those weird creatures
Yeah,
that was
yeah,
necessary
exactly.
about.
It's so weird looking as well. Like,
Yeah, it was very scary. It was very monstery. And I was
mm,
like, this would be a terrifying and like awesome episode in itself. But I mean, that's why they did it. But I was
yeah.
like, what is that thing? Damn, okay.
Yeah. um,
So should we get into the big stuff? Because the
yeah, I
next
guess
thing
so.
that happens in after that, we talked about the massive heart
Hmm.
attack. He only has like a maybe weeks to a month to live. Then and so Dean kind of says, and he's laying in a hospital bed, and Sam is like, I just talked to your doctor, and Dean's like, yeah, I'm gonna die, and there's nothing that you can do about it. There's nothing
Yeah.
you can do to stop it. And of course, Sam says obstinately, like, watch me.
Oh, I love when he's stubborn. Like he's
Yeah.
so, oh, yeah,
And that's
just
arguably
stubborn in the best kind of way.
yeah. Yeah. And I feel like that's arguably like the thesis of the entire fucking series, which is I'm gonna die, you can't stop it. And the other brother goes, watch me.
Yeah.
And that is how they mess so much stuff up. And we end up where we end up in season 8, which we'll talk about years from now. But like, you know what I mean? Where it's like, okay,
Yeah.
we're gonna mess with whatever we have to make sure that isn't true. And so the next scene, and I know you have so much to say about this, but Sam goes back to the apartment or to the hotel alone because Dean has to stay at the
Yeah.
hotel. And so Sam is calling his, I wrote in all caps, his bullshit father,
Yeah.
trying to sound upbeat on a voicemail because this
I
piece of shit
know.
will never answer that phone or call his babies
Hmm.
back. He's dying. He
Yep.
is literally dying. It's not a curse that they're racing against time to undo. It's not something that they can like use their training for. It's a literal medical event that has ravaged Dean's body. And my last note on that is I could not hate this man more. Speaking of John,
Yeah.
your
Just
children are devastated and dying, and you're just like busy.
yeah. Just before that, I do want to just say that I really like Dean when he's in the hospital because he's
Oh,
doing this thing of trying desperately to make light of the situation.
yeah.
And but it's in a way that in later seasons, I think he does similar stuff and it comes across, I don't know, it comes across disingenuous or it comes across not as well. But the
Or
way he's doing
slightly
it
like
here,
it's like I feel like I know what you're getting at is that it feels more like he's trying to guilt Sam or there's an
yeah.
ulterior tone it feels in the later ones
Yes.
where it's
Whereas
like
here, this is about him feeling the real fear and
yes.
not wanting Sam to feel it. And
Yes.
but I do also like the fact that Sam actually says that's not funny and actually kind of asserts the fact that for him, perhaps this isn't the best approach.
Yes.
Um, and I think Dean sort of does actually pay attention to that because he does change tack as it goes. Amazing. Remember when this was a thing Dean
I
did? Anyway, back
know.
to actual piece of shit, John Winchester.
Yes, we actually hate him.
Let's talk about how desperate Sam must have been feeling to make that phone call.
Oh, so true. You're right.
Like, there is no way he would have made that if he didn't feel so completely desperate and alone in that moment. Like, yeah. I just can't see any other circumstance that would lead him to do that.
Yeah.
And as you said, I think he knows in his heart that his dad is never going to pick that call up. Or he probably did listen to it. That's what pisses me off the most, because we know from context stuff that he has listened to some of the other voicemails that have been left. He probably did listen to it.
Yeah.
And he still chose to ignore it.
If the whole point of John ignoring his sons and running from his sons and hiding and neglecting and avoiding his sons is to, quote unquote, protect them from dying, what is the point of ignoring a phone call where Sam is literally saying, your favorite son is dying? Like,
yeah.
And of course, and I know you're going to touch on this too, but even in that phone call, Sam is finding a way to try to like please his father, but like, don't worry, Dad, like, I'm gonna figure it out, I'm gonna fix it, like, but just wanted you to know he's dying, but it's cool, I got this. Like, why is he not calling back if the real truth of the reason he's being such a piece of absent father shit right now is to protect them?
I honestly feel like the reason why Sam is calling is less to really talk to his dad and more just to, like, because he doesn't expect his dad to do anything. It's that he feels so desperate and alone, and we know now he has nobody else, because all of his friends he's cut off contact with, as far as we know now. So he has no one else, and I think it's literally just a case of he just needs to say this out loud to someone, and
and get it off his chest. Like, I'm gonna take care of this. I'm letting Dad know. Yeah. And I've done what I can. And now, like, let's.
Exactly. Ugh. And Jared's acting in this scene, like, it's just so, he's so good. He's so good.
Yes.
And the moment where he, like, bites his knuckles is like, it's such a, like, visceral thing of absolute, like, desperation and anxiety. Like, it's not even like a nail bite, it's a knuckle bite. Like, there's something about that that's just so, like, visceral to me.
Yes.
And it's something about the way he, like, slightly scrunches up his face as he does it, and, like, you like, just feel
as much of the tension he can, like, pull together. It's like,
exactly. And you feel like every single ounce of it. Like, he absolutely nails every bit of the, like, emotion in this scene. I know. I wish he didn't. It's so heartbreaking.
He's so good. And I also put, this is a messed up thing to say, but I said, how's this for real world consequences? Because we usually, in parentheses, love to see that, but I mean, in this case, it's Dean having a massive heart attack from having to electrocute a monster, and they really don't deal with that. I mean, I don't think they deal with that again. Like, after a while, we don't deal with that until the finale, which is season 15, where Dean is like, anyways, a consequence of falling against a wall is you might die. Like, so, like, spoiler alert, guys. But like,
Audrey, we can't do this. We've triggered millions of Dean girls.
I'm so sorry. It's not true. Like,
I know.
I think the finale would have been less upsetting to people if they had continued to do real world consequences like this. Throughout the series, where it's like they are not invincible, and also it doesn't have to be like a big deal that, like, oh, they're dead and they're in hell, but it's because they made a deal with it. You know, it's just he messed up and he fell off a cliff or something. You know,
I think the early seasons are really good at establishing the fact that is part of the hunt to life, is that anything could kill you. Like,
you have to worry about
you're not invincible. And I think that part of the problem is that the myth arc kind of does create them into being beings who are, you know, they're created for a higher purpose or whatever.
They forget that you're supposed to be you could get killed by something in the supernatural realm, but you also have to worry about just regular real world things that could also harm you. So I jump from, I know you have way more notes than me, so I'm going to tell you where I jump. So I no, because then you can lead me through to the next one, because I jump from Dean showing up at the apartment or the hotel rather.
Mm-hmm.
And Sam being like, what the fuck are you doing? And Dean's being like, I'm a rascal even when I'm dying, you know? And he's like, I want to be somewhere where there's hot girls or whatever he says. So I go from there to Dean literally sitting in the tent. So whatever you
my only main comments in that in-between space are, number one, this is the fluffiest duckling that Dean has ever been. I'm so sorry to say that it's when he's literally dying. But there's something about, he never wears a hoodie. Like, Sam wears hoodies in these first few seasons. I can't think of any other real situation where we see Dean in a hoodie.
Yeah.
Like that. And there's something about him, like, he's bundled up in the hoodie and he looks cute and vulnerable and kitty, and I'm so sorry.
Cozy, and his eyes are like kind of puffy because he's been
like, and I'm like, oh no. Literally the fluffiest duckling that has ever existed.
It's so true. I'm so glad you pointed that out because you're totally right. Oh my god.
And also I just love that Sam, number one, sees immediately through the bravado of the like trying to be silly, trying to laugh in the face of death, and that he calls Dean on it. But not in a mean way, just in a like,
come on, man.
Cut it out. I know you're feeling vulnerable.
Yeah, he's like, you're literally dying. Stop pretending.
Yeah. Like, I actually think it's almost actually him giving Dean permission to be vulnerable.
Yeah, like, you don't have to do this for me. I know I'm your younger brother.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Like, it's okay. I've got you. You can kind of just be how you feel right now.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. Like, I think what Sam is doing by calling him on that is basically saying, you don't have to do this. You don't have to protect me. Like, you can just feel it, be vulnerable, feel the fear. And I like the fact that Dean does a little bit, like, later on.
You're right. And he loosens up enough to go with Sam to, quote unquote, the specialist, which when I was watching it and he opened the door, like, Sam is driving and they park in this muddy field and there's a tent and Sam opens the door to help Dean out and Dean's like, I got it. And then he's like, God damn it, you're a liar, because he's like, you told me you were taking me to a doctor. And Sam's like, well, I said a specialist. And it's a faith healer in the middle of a muddy field. And honestly, like, I get why Dean.
Oh, absolutely. No. I have so much sympathy for Dean in this episode. Like, he is right to feel the way that he does about the whole situation. Well, like, I totally get it. But I do also love the way that Sam says that, I believe I said a specialist.
Like, and he's not it's not a lie. He's a very specific specialist. But as a person
it's just
who
cute.
I have like religious trauma, like, I felt extremely connected to Dean in this next scene.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure you'll go back and talk a little bit more about Sam stuff, but because there's so much cute Sam stuff in between arriving and Dean on stage. But when Dean gets on stage, the way that he said, he's very, very soft and respectful. Like, he's like, it's okay, pick someone else. And then he gets on stage and he's like, look, man, like, no disrespect, but I am not exactly a believer. Like, the soft rejection of the church is so sweet. It made me like emotional because if it were me, I'd be furious. I'd be disrespectful. I'd be like, F this, F that. Cause like, I have genuinely bad experiences with the church and like, I have my own shit. And so, but Dean is so quiet and soft about it. And it's just an element of Dean that we don't often get to see. And it's very, there's no bravado. There's no, I don't know the word, but like, he's not being like kind of an asshole. Like, he's just like, hey man, I respect what you're trying to do. I do not believe, even though at this moment he thinks this guy's a fraud. Like, just, I said he's better than me in that regard, because I would have been a total bitch. Like, I would have just, I would have been.
This hands down is my favorite Dean in any episode.
Yes.
Like, so I said this may not be my favorite episode, but this is my favorite Dean. Like, hands down. I don't know. There's something about him in this episode, and it's not just. I'm so sorry. It's not just because he looks cute when he's sick. Like, and the way he reacts to and deals with this situation is also like yeah, we'll definitely get into that. But yeah, I just love him in this episode. Like,
I love him too. I miss this version of him.
I said this in the chat. This is the most Dean positive you will ever get me. Like, this is the highest of high points, and I do love him. Like, I really genuinely do. Like, it wouldn't hurt me so much the way he is later on if I didn't love him. But this is the episode that, like,
it helps you too.
Will actually get me, like, genuinely emotional about Dean.
100%. Talk to me about Sam.
Okay. All caps.
In the chairs.
The way he runs, I want to go back to it, the way he runs around the car to help Dean out of the car. Oh, like, he does this little, and because he's so tall and it's like such a short little distance, it's like such a little, like, weird little awkward kind of like shuffly run, and it's so cute. And he's just so, like, he's trying to be so tender with
and
Dean.
Caring,
like, he literally, like, he's so sweet. Even when Dean's shrugging him off, like, he's still just kind of like letting him know that he is there and he is looking after him. And I just oh no, I was gonna say his hair. Like, his hair is so fluffy.
You said
so
his hands.
cute.
I was like, obviously hands, yes.
Well, I did remember that I did have a Sam Hands tag on Tumblr the other day. I couldn't remember if I did, because I saw a post and I was like, oh, that is a hands tag if there ever was one. Did I have one? Yes, I did.
Well, on the internet, we have to clarify, because I think there was like a moment in one of the episodes where Elle was talking about when he was barefoot and how much she loved that. And I had to be like, okay, well, she doesn't have a foot fetish. Like, everyone, like, calm down. Like, it's a character thing where, like, we talk about his comfort level, blah blah blah. So the hands thing, again, not a sexual thing, just
yes. I'd just like to point for the audience, I'm extremely ace. Like, this is just, they're just long and beautiful and delicate. Like, and there's a good Sam Hands moment actually later on in this episode.
Not
so
that there's anything wrong with any of those things.
No. If hands are your thing, then go for it.
It's just clarifying for understanding who, like, where we are. Okay, great. When Sam is sitting next to Dean in the audience, talk to me about that, because it's so precious.
So there's this moment where you get this side profile of Sam and you get the blue background behind, and it's just a beautifully composed shot and beautifully color graded, and like, and I could go, we've talked about just how gorgeous all this first season is, but like, that is I think that is probably, like, in my top 5, like, favorite shots in everything.
It's
in Supernatural. Like, it's just beautiful. And he's got this, like, wide-eyed, just, like, look of hope.
Yes.
And when I talk about, like, Sam and Faith, really what I'm talking about is, like, his relationship with hope.
Yes.
And his faith in goodness. And actually, he says this when he's helping Dean out with the car, and he says, all of the bad that we've seen, doesn't that make you also believe that there must be good? And that to me is like the Sam thesis statement.
Yeah. Like,
he has seen so much bad, but all it does is make him believe harder in goodness. Like, I genuinely think that at its core is what is Sam. And also that wide-eyed look that he has with the little profile. I don't know if I ever made a graphic comparing it, but I should have done. The scene in Mother's Little Helper in season 9, Sam Girl Christmas.
Oh my God, yes.
Yes. When he releases the souls, and he looks up at the souls with this, like, look of wide-eyed wonder, it's the exact same look. And the thing is, at that point, Sam does not have religious faith. Like, I will fight anyone who thinks that he still has religious faith at that point. There is no chance he does. No. But he still has belief in goodness and and he has, like, wonder. Yes. I think, like, just an endless sense of, like, wonder at the world.
Yes.
And it's the exact same look. And I just
love that.
I love it.
Well, you'll have to make a graphic now.
Yeah,
you have to get back into your old Tumblr. Where
I know. Don't tempt me.
No, I'm. That's your homework. You have to now.
Yeah,
I have a mug of that moment from.
Yes, I know. I saw, and you posted it on your story the other day, and
every time I use it, I'm like, I love it.
But yeah, it's the exact same look. Like, if you put them side by side, like it's identical. Like it's just, yeah, it's wonderment, and it's just like hope and belief.
Yeah.
And I wrote on a post when I did like the Bit Sam Girl Club like top 5 season 1 moments. I wrote the moment that I wrote this thing about like I wanted to keep him in that moment forever. Because it's just like this sweet, like naive, gentle faith and hope, and before the world like literally rips that out from underneath him,
just crushes him.
Yeah, but as I said, he doesn't lose that hope in goodness,
right?
And that's what I think makes him so wonderful.
It shifts from being a belief in this to the belief in that.
One of the cruelest things that happens to anyone in this show is the way in which Sam's, I don't know that it really ever was really religious faith in a like conventional sense, but he did want desperately there to be
the antithesis of what they fight. He wanted there to be the antithesis of that. An angel, like something good in that same,
and that was taken from him by the things that he believed in. That's what makes it so cruel to me, is that like it wasn't just like taken from him by circumstances of the world. It was literally like he prayed to angels,
and they were
every night,
"F you, we don't like you."
For years, it's implied, since he was a child, and they literally turned up and said, "We hate you, and we think that you're unclean." Anyway, So just that screenshot, like I don't know, I could literally talk about it for the whole episode, but I just desperately, whenever I see it, I just want to keep him there, like in that moment. Agree. Yeah, it just makes me so sad.
Little baby.
My next note was literally just, Dean is so fluffy in his hoodie of sickness. So I clearly, the hoodie of sickness made so much impact on me.
We love a hoodie.
Yeah. Obviously, like Dean, as you said, like he expresses that he just feels like something isn't right. But, and of course, he obviously also talks about the fact that he saw the Reaper. What I love about this scene is, number one, Dean's reaction to this really genuinely, as I said, this is my favorite Dean. It just endears me to him so much because he is so deeply shaken at the idea that his life might have come at the cost of someone else.
Yeah. And he already, like, even when he didn't think that, he still was trying to pass the buck off to someone else. Like, Sam was sitting next to him, like, bright-eyed, like, we got picked. And Dean is like immediately like, no, pick someone else. Like, he does not believe that his life should be valued above others.
He literally says this later on in regards to Layla, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's like, you deserved it more than I did. And I think like it's the first time, maybe not the first time, because he does say earlier that like, I did everything Dad told me and he abandoned me too. But like, this is the first time it is very literally like, I deserve to just die more. Like, let's not even try, because me dying isn't that big a deal, which is really, really sad.
Yeah. And the thing is that I think in this moment, it's so sad and it's so vulnerable. But it also makes me feel sad because later on, what this I think turns to is Dean putting all of his sense of self onto him and Sam as the unit, and then that obviously leads into some really terrible places.
Yeah,
it
gets very complicated. Like, once they start really messing with that, we have a lot of issues.
Yeah, but in this moment, like, it just makes me, it makes me so sad for him. But I also love Sam's reaction, because Sam, at first, you can tell he really doesn't, he's saying, can't we just take this? Like, can't we just accept that it was a miracle and let's keep going? And I think partly that comes from this place of he wants to believe. Like, that's a literal line that he says later on, like he wanted to believe.
Yes.
And he desperately does at this point, because it's something that has brought him, I think, like hope and stability. When they get proof
Yes.
Later on, the second that he is like, okay, yeah, this is definitely a thing, he switches instantly, because that is, Sam, as soon as he knows that for sure that somebody was in danger, like, he immediately is like, right, let's sort this,
Yes,
like,
he's very pragmatic. Sam is very pragmatic.
But I think also the place where this, like, can't we just accept this is coming from is he's just got Dean back.
He's like, I want this to just be what it is.
yeah. And I think probably he's worried because,
will it undo it?
Will it undo it? Exactly. And I think that's a very understandable and, reaction to have. Like, I don't think that it makes him a bad person that he wanted to just take this for what it was.
No, 100%. I do think it was a really nice moment with the brothers to when he said, you know what, I don't trust this, and Sam's like, but I want to, and Dean's like, but I have an instinct that I've always trusted in situations like this. That's the moment Sam kind of goes, okay, I got you. And I love that moment where he's like, look, I feel like that was a moment of Dean understanding, like, I get where you're coming from, but like, and it wasn't an argument. It wasn't like, come on, man, you're being stupid. It was a very much like, exactly, let's have this conversation. Like, I get it, but this is what I'm feeling. And Sam's like, okay, let's look into it. And so they do.
Yeah. Yep.
And I feel like Taro is part of it, which makes me upset because Taro is not bad. I'm all caps, not Taro.
Yeah. Can we talk about the scene that I experienced and you did not, because I know because you had to watch it on streaming services. I am so sorry.
Yes, please.
Oh, the Fear the Reaper scene.
I'm so mad.
I think it is the best use of music in all of Supernatural. Apart from, like, maybe the first time we hear "Carry On My Wayward Son," entire heart just goes. But like, it's so good, and the music they replace it with on the streaming is like actually criminal. Because I rewatched it the other night, and I had to do it on streaming.
They should go to jail for the music that they replace it with.
Like, they clearly were like, oh, we'll just choose something with like death in it, and that will be all right. But it's like, you can't replace Fear the Reaper. Like, that's a banger song. And
the monster is a Reaper.
Yeah. Like, but it's so good. Like, the way, like, the guy's being chased, and you like seeing the Reaper coming up on him, and he's just like so like calm. Like, that's what I love the Reapers in this.
It looks like the Gentleman a little bit for me from Buffy.
Yes, yeah, there's a little bit of that, isn't there? Like, he's so serene. Like, it's really interesting the way they chose to make them.
Okay,
I think.
But isn't it true that later on in the series, Reapers just look like normal people?
Yes. So actually, that happens fairly quickly, because I think, is it Billy, who's the one is she introduced relatively early on? Anyway, they do.
I forgot about her.
Reaper. Yeah, so they do meet another Reaper in, I think, like season 3 or 4. There's that whole episode where they're like in the spirit realm with the Reaper for the whole episode, because they have to like.
And they're like a pretty normal looking person. They don't look like a monster. So, I wonder if this Reaper is just like really ugly for some reason.
Yeah, there is an early season retcon of what Reapers are.
Unfortunately, but
I am I genuinely think they should have just left Reapers as they were. But that pales in all comparison to, I have to bring out the I don't remember which season it was now, where they did it, like 10 or 11 maybe, where they retconned Reapers into angels, and I've never been more mad about a retcon.
Why do they keep doing that? This is why, okay, guys, we're sorry. We're old farts. Like, we like the original like first 5 seasons and like a few seasons after that, and then when they start changing things, we're like, wait a second, did you guys watch the first few seasons? Because I feel like y'all are forgetting.
It makes no sense, and I hate the fact that they kind of had this weird thing where they felt like they had to fold like so many different things into angels.
I feel like they did that because it just made it easier for them. Like, they didn't have this huge lexicon. They didn't have to go through like a encyclopedia of what they had.
Yeah.
established. They were just like, well, if we make everything angels and everything also demons, like then we don't have to think about it. And it's like,
I would, and also I would like to be very clear. I am not a person who thinks that the introduction of angels into Supernatural full stop is a big issue. Like I know some people
it's
think that that's
actually
like
really interesting in my
yeah.
as again a person with religious trauma. It is very interesting to watch the religious mythology play out and see that every asshole. I was like,
yeah. Because I know there are some people who really do only like seasons 1 to 3, like they only before angels get introduced. I'm not that person, but I think that in later seasons they don't know what to do with angels and they get very flattened.
Once
because
you go
they're like too powerful.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And the angels are like too powerful, so then they have to keep like making them less powerful. And anyway, but yeah, the retconning of Reapers into angels, I had to bring it up because this is obviously the first Reaper and he's so different.
I didn't know there were only like first 3 season people. I'm like, no, you can't start a series and scene 1 is with a demon and there be no implication that there are also angels. Do we want to talk about the conversation that Dean and Sam have about what makes a monster that they briefly touch on? Because I felt like that was extremely important.
Is this where Sam says about we're not going to kill a human being, Dean?
Yeah, because they start talking about tarot, they start talking about all these things, and that's when they believe it's the pastor who is controlling whatever this is, a Reaper. They haven't seen him yet at that point, but they think it's the man. And Dean, he says, okay, let's get him. And Sam, again, being very pragmatic throughout this show, throughout this episode specifically, despite being the one with like seemingly religious faith, he's like, look, we can't do that. Like, and this is the first time we have a discussion of what makes a monster, which is going to consistently be a huge rift between the brothers throughout the entire series. And you kind of see what side the boys are always going to fall on. So Dean feels like if he decides something or someone is a monster, then they are. And he should get to kill them as a hunter of monsters. And then he is the one choosing who and what is a monster and deciding what is going to be killed under that umbrella. And in that way, he is playing God in the same way he is accusing the preacher of playing God. And Sam points this out, right? And Sam says, look, like if we kill this man, we're no different from him. He is a person. And so this urge we see in Dean to be tempted to just go straight in and kill a person is tempered at the beginning of this conversation, but later we know that it will be an instinct that it will lead him a lot of the time, and that is going to be a huge problem.
Yeah, and it will eventually apply to his own brother.
And we hate that.
Yes, we do. Yep. I definitely think that that's a really nice little, like, as you say, like it's a little encapsulation of their attitudes.
It's the intro to that whole thing. And it's literally, I think that is what the show hinges on. It hinges on 2 things: brother die, other brother say no die, and this, like monster, not monster. It's very much that.
This is why I think Faith is a pivotal episode, even
100%.
though it doesn't necessarily tie into the myth arc. It sets the stage for so many things that I think are like pivotal ingredients in the series. You know, Sam's sense of faith and wonderment and hope and the religious faith that he has. This is really the first like concrete bit of information that we have that suggests that Sam might have religious faith at this point. Like prior to that, we'd had the little moment with the rosary, which may just be like something that I made up in my own brain, because anytime I've ever seen anyone talk about it on Tumblr, I've realized that they have referenced like my original post that I made about that.
Like after seeing
so Faith, I think I have
no. Yeah. I think after you saw Faith, and then there's another episode later where they think it's an angel and it's not. I can't remember what it's called, but it's called something like Church or something. Maybe it's Home. I don't know. And you see those things, then it's an easy thing. It's an easy conclusion to draw when you're rewatching and say, oh, there's the first time he shows us he has the faith with the rosary beads. You know, it makes sense.
Yeah. And then the only other little moment we'd had was in Hookman, where Sam does the like nudge to Dean when they're in the church to get him to
Man.
pray. But if you've noticed Sam, he has a very serious expression on his face, and he is quite obviously like genuinely putting his head down and like not just doing it for the appearance of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is like the first concrete bit. So it sets the stage for that. It sets the stage for, as you said, like this relationship between their belief of whether or not you can be the arbiter of someone's monstrosity, and also obviously, yeah, as you said, like it's really the first time we see this refusal to let the other die.
Yeah.
Which, yeah,
100%.
which in this scenario has consequences, but perhaps isn't quite the level of consequences that we'll go on to see. But it certainly, I do like the fact that the first time it happens, it has consequences. Yes. I like the fact that they're establishing that straight away. I think that saving someone from death has stakes, and always will have stakes. And I think as much as people do make jokes about how many times they like die and come back or whatever, actually I think that's one of the things that even the later seasons episodes do understand, is that this is still something that never happens lightly, you know.
Yes, there's always huge consequences. Yeah, which is why they have to get the Cosmos. Like that's why the Cosmos interferes, is because the Winchesters continued to mess with this thing, and eventually it got so big.
Interestingly, though, I think when we're talking about like Dean kind of being the arbiter, having this thing of like being the arbiter of what's monstrous, and Sam saying we can't do that, I did think it was interesting though that when they find out that it's the pastor's wife, Sam calls what she's doing evil, and it's actually Dean who's the one who says no, desperate.
Yes, I wrote that note down. I was like, Dean like finds empathy to like shows that he understands that like why she started it, at least that she was so desperate to save her husband that she started using dark magic and went from there. And I also want to point out that I gasped when I saw the newspaper clippings of the people she chose, because this was the first time I ever recognized that this bitch was homophobic. I chose leftist leaning people to target as sinful, like a gay teacher, and the article literally said that literally one discrimination case. And I was, as a friend who is literally a teacher, A, and queer, B, and C, as a out gay teacher friend who literally had to go to court.
Yeah, I was gonna say
this bitch would have killed my friend Stacy. Like, are you kidding?
Yeah.
So I don't know how I ever missed that. Like, obviously I knew that she thought they were sinful, and I'd maybe just blinked every time. But this time I was like, damn, because the second one was an abortion activist that she had killed.
Yeah. Honestly, I wonder if, you know, in some ways you can put down like the Sam specifically saying that he thinks, you know, he sees this as evil. He's the one who saw those clippings.
Yeah.
Like I don't know exactly what
she's killing, like at genuinely kind of like cool people over here.
Yeah, like I think when he relayed it to Dean, he just said she's killing people she sees as sinful, but he didn't necessarily relay exactly, you know. Well, I mean, I guess you can probably imagine what a, you know, religious nutcase's wife might, you know, might like.
Can I ever? I live in the Bible Belt in Texas. I definitely don't have to live
exactly.
It is horrific that Dean has to stop the Reverend from healing Layla, like in the middle. That's so horrific for him and for her and her mother. It's devastating.
Yes, I was just going to say, going back to what we said about Sam Hands, there is like a really good Sam Hands moment in this, which I only thought about because when I was checking whether or not I did have a tag for his hands, I was going back through the tag, and then I saw a post that Jess made, because I think Jess was probably the queen of like Sam Hands posts.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Where she'd done like a collected gift set of them, and one of them was this moment. So it's when Sam is like looking through the books. Like there's a really good like kind of like it just like really focuses on his hands.
You're right.
I just love that moment. I don't know. It's something about. I think it's just again. It's like they're just beautiful and graceful and long. But I think it's also something to do with Jared's acting. Like he always uses them very like
he's a gesticulator. Yeah.
I think it's also like the juxtaposition of, and I think this is a very deliberate thing that Jared does with Sam, is that he's very tall, and later on, like he's very big, like muscly big.
Yes.
But he moves through the world like someone who is smaller, because I think that's something that he's always trying to make himself.
Yes.
Yeah. And yeah, something about the way he's very delicate. Yeah, there's a beautiful shot of the Impala in the rain. I made note of that.
Yeah, there was a lot of raining, but the boys weren't getting wet, which I thought was funny because I think they made jokes about that, where that's like they have like a tarp up and it's raining in the background, but the boys are like totally completely fine. I wanted to talk about Dean struggling. He hesitates when they are finally trying to stop the Reaper. And they they learn a bit more. They do stop the healing of Layla, but they're unable to stop the Reaper from killing the man who was like, protesting. And Dean kind of, before they start that, Dean kind of, he's like, okay, well, what if we waited? You know, he has this moment where he's like, you know, oh, do we have to stop it right now? And Sam is like, he's being pragmatic again. He's like, hey, like we have to stop it. Like, it's terrible what's happening to her, but that is not for us to decide. Like, we did not give her cancer. We cannot let a monster kill. Like, that's our job. You know, cancer is for the doctors. And I just think it's such an interesting episode to discuss like ethics, philosophy. Like, it is a trolley. I said, this is a trolley problems ass episode.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yeah, it's fascinating. There's so much that you can dig into with it.
Yes. And Dean struggles with that. I mean, like at the very end, like, there's a Sweet Brothers moment where like he's just like not okay. At the end, they fixed everything. Reaper's gone. The evil pastor's wife is gone. She got what, you know, the Reaper wanted to give her, and they're done. And Sam's like, what's wrong? Like, I can tell you're not okay. And Dean just needs reassurance from Sam that they did the right thing. And it's a very sweet moment, but it shows that Dean is driven by his personal feelings, and he needs to be reminded by Sam's like rooted in the ground pragmatism that I get it and I feel the same, but we have to focus on what is our job, what is our lane that we need to stay in, and like what means we're crossing over and like not doing what we should. And I think that's a really sweet way to end the episode between the boys, because the whole conversation that they have had this entire episode is the trolley problem question. You know, like, is it worse of us to save the person we know and like and let someone we don't know die, or is it better to do what we know is right and do our job?
Yeah. And I also really I noted specifically that moment that the lines are like, Sam asks him, what is it? And Dean tries to just say nothing. And Sam then just reiterates, what is it? Right. And like, again, it's just like, and that's what he does this whole episode is he doesn't let Dean try and put up the walls.
Yeah. He's like, we've been doing so good this whole episode. Come on.
Yeah. And not in a pushy way, not in a like disrespecting Dean's boundaries way. To me, it just always feels like he's saying it's okay.
Yeah. Well, and especially in this situation, Dean clearly needed that reassurance. Like,
exactly.
Sam gave him the permission to like, no, just tell me what it is. And Dean's like,
that's it.
That's the right thing, right?
It's giving him permission. It's giving him, it's giving him permission at the end, but it's also just throughout the whole thing. It's like Sam at every stage, he's saying to Dean, you can be vulnerable. You can let down those walls with me. And I think that's so important, because I think that, you know, that is something that Dean does struggle with. Yeah. Because he's always felt that he does have to have those walls up. And I like seeing that. I think Sam is very cognizant of that. And also is very gentle in the way in which he says,
agree with that.
Yeah. Like you can let them down around me. It to me, it's not even like you have to. Like, he's not saying like you have to do this.
He's saying I can tell that you need to.
You can.
Yeah, I can tell you need to, and you can do that if you need to.
You can do it. Yeah, exactly. And I love that.
Do you want to do last thoughts? Anything you want to say, and then we'll rate it?
Number one, I personally do not cut Roy as much slack as Dean. So Dean kind of is like, oh, well, Roy was a good man.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I hadn't even thought about it, really.
I think that this man is still some sort of Southern Baptist-esque church leader who was married to this woman who held these beliefs about gay people and abortion rights activists and protesters. There is no chance. I'm sorry, there is no chance that Roy didn't also hold those beliefs. I just don't believe it.
Okay, you nailed it. Absolutely.
He might not have been killing people, but I seriously doubt that he wasn't also a bigot.
God, you nailed it. Dang, you absolutely nailed it. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
There's no chance.
I mean, I like the fact that Dean does cut him some slack. That's quite, maybe that's quite nice. And I think maybe Dean needs to do that for himself. But yeah. No, sorry.
So Layla comes to visit at the end because Sam invited her. Peak little brother wingmanning. And then he's like, I'm going to go get a soda.
Yes. Oh, I love that. It's so cute. It's so lovely.
So cute.
Yeah. This, as I said, this is my favorite Brothers episode. Yes. They're every interaction that they have, and not just the way that Sam is towards Dean, but the way that Dean is towards Sam. Yes. I just I love it. It's beautiful. I love this ending with Layla and what she says about, if you're going to have faith, you can't just have it when the miracles happen. You have to have it when they don't.
Yes.
It's interesting, obviously, that she says it to Dean, because that is the person that, she's formed the connection with in the episode. Mm-hmm. But I do also think that this ties into the Sam thesis statement, because I think that is.
Yeah. I think that Sam already gets it. And that's why Dean needed to hear it, because.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think the ending with Dean offering to pray for Layla broke my heart. That's the sweetest thing a non-believer can say to someone who they know is a believer. And she was so sincere, because I people are like, I'll pray for you, and I'm like, fuck off, but cool, thanks. I know it's nice, but I'm still mad. I'm mad still. Mm-hmm. But Dean was so soft and sweet and was like, I know this means something to you, and I don't know how to help you, but I'm going to do this for you. And it was so sweet.
There's a difference between a believer saying that they'll pray for a non-believer. Sometimes that can be nice if you know the person well enough and you understand the sincerity of where it's coming from. Yeah. But for me, I really dislike stuff like that. It partly because I really can't cope with anything where people try and suggest that anything's predestined or something was supposed to happen or whatever, and that plays into that for me.
I agree.
But a non-believer offering to do that for a believer is a very different dynamic.
So sweet. It was just so sweet.
It's very sweet. Literally my last note is just, I love this Dean crying emoji. So there you go. I will end my episode thoughts on a Dean thought. Mark this down. This may be the last time. Well, a positive Dean thought anyway. No,
oh my God.
I love him. I love him.
I love him so much.
This episode reminded me of how much I love him. When I said I rewatched it, by the way, the reason why I rewatched it, mostly because I love this episode, but also because I did that stupid thing of watching Sacrifice and then the first episode of season 9, and then I was like, I was like, I don't. I know, I like to hurt myself, apparently. So I was like, I have to rewatch Faith before we go into this, because I have to get myself back in that mindset.
Oh my
because
God.
Otherwise I'm gonna go into this episode mad as hell.
Oh God, I'm glad you rewatched it. Okay. What did you say? What was your adjective for the wardrobe? I already know the answer. Out of horrendous, adorable, genuinely good, or terrible but great?
My rating was adorable.
Same.
My heart wants to put it up. It's genuinely good, even though it's not, because I just love Sam in this episode. I think the hair, and I'm like, hair is not wardrobe, but hair is also wardrobe. You know, fluffy hair.
Yeah, totally.
But I think objectively, it is an adorable.
Yeah, especially because of all the hoodie fluffiness that we get.
Yes.
All right. So our Sam Girl friendly scale is a 1 through 5 for screen time, Sam Girl enjoyment, and heart eyes. So let's start with screen time. What did you give it for screen time?
I think this is a solid 5. I genuinely do. Yeah. I know that we've already made it very clear how much I love this episode, so I'm entirely biased. But
you do love it.
The use they make of the Sam screen time in this is like in my top.
Wonderful.
You know. Yeah. I just think we learn so much about him. We learn, and as I said, we learn about him, we learn about the brothers' relationship, and we learn about the greater thesis statements of the show.
Yeah.
So
I gave it
to
a
me,
4.5. So yeah,
right.
It's close to 5 for me too. I really like it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Enjoyment. What did you give it out of 5?
It's getting a 5, Audrey.
I gave it a 4.8 because I do love this episode as well. So like we're up there with this one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And we know why. So, and hard eyes?
It's also getting a 5. I kept looking at my scores and I was like, can I knock any of them down? I was like, I can't do it. I just can't do it. I'm so sorry.
I gave it a 4.8. So I'm right there with you.
Yeah. That one, see, you've basically just done what I was like, can I just punch them down? But I couldn't bring myself to do it. But yeah, that screen cap of Sam with the blue background alone, like puts the hot eyes up to 5 for me. Like, yeah.
It's the perfect episode so far, even though it's painful. Damn. But that's why we're here. We love the pain.
Exactly.
So together, our average rating score for Faith is 4.85 so far, the highest rated
as it should
of season 1.
Yes.
Oh my God, Vic, thank you so much for coming on. I mean, you'll be on again very soon.
Yes, pleasure always, but even more of a pleasure to come talk about this episode.
I love it. All right, we'll see you soon.